Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Check out the podcast below in the description.
So the 49ers are on a bye. The hope is that when they return from their bye, Richard Sherman, among others, will return. But a bye gives you a chance to start thinking about some things. And one thing I think when you take a step back and look, Nick Wagoner wrote the Niners have 40 free agents coming up this year, some unrestricted, some restricted. And then we start stacking up some other things that we've talked about recently, like
That's a lot of guys.
what do you do with McGlinchey's fifth-year option? What do you do? Fred Warner's coming into the last year. John just waved bye-bye. That's what they did with Eric Armstead. Remember, they didn't pick it up, and they ended up paying him. Right? They did not pick up Armstead's fifth year.
No, they did.
They
Remember?
did pick it up.
Yeah, they did.
Well, never mind then. You wish you had a fifth-year option on Fred Warner. He's making under $1 million next year, the last year of his contract, so he's going to need an extension. What do you do with Trent Williams? Extension. What do you do with Sherman? He's a free agent. Been one of your best corners. He's hurt right now. We don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back. And then there's a bunch of other guys. Emmanuel Mosley, I think he's restricted. Kerry Hyder, DJ Jones, like Ronald Blair. All these guys that we didn't spend a lot of time talking about the last couple of years, but have clearly been really valuable to the 49ers. Jason Verrett, K'Wan Williams, Tart. Juszczyk's a free agent. I mean, it's on and on. Cap's coming down, John. And
I'd imagine Kendrick Bourne is either an unrestricted
Kendrick
or
Bourne is
restricted free agent.
unrestricted. And you might need a new quarterback. And you're coming off a bad year. It's one thing if you're coming off the Super Bowl, but now it's a reset year. You kind of got to get back on track. Feels like the biggest offseason of the Shanahan era all of a sudden.
Yeah, and the other reality is, we can make excuses all we want. They're going to be 3 for 4. And 3 for 4 missing the playoffs in Kyle Shanahan's 4 years as the coach. Now, the 1 year was awesome. He got to the Super Bowl. He won the NFC. It was really cool. But the other years have sucked. Those first 2 years were awful. This year, there are a lot of excuses to be made that are valid, but has been a rough watch. I mean, the Eagle game, Miami game, that Seattle game, like they've had some where your fans are turning off the game at halftime. It was just like, God, we suck. And I just, on the bright side, they have a lot of core players that are going nowhere, right? George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. Offensively, you feel very good about that. Defensively, you got Bosa and Fred Warner. So you got like 5, I think blue chip type guys.
Yeah, I think so. And we'll see. Maybe Kinlaw can fit into that category. He's clearly one of your core players.
And Kinlaw and Armstead is a good player. He's under contract. But you listed a lot of names, and the salary cap's surely going to come down. The number one question for this franchise before all the other guys you named. And they like Juszczyk is a big part of their offense. Hell, Kendrick Bourne has been making plays for years. Like K'Wan Williams is one of the better nickel corners in the league. Like these are very important players on a good team. But the quarterback is the thing that we talk about the most, is the thing that moves the needle, is the number one thing in the NFL if you want to compete. And that's a question mark right now for the NFL, for the 49ers. And we know in the NFL, when your quarterback is a question mark, your team is usually, that's a problem for your team. That to me is the scariest part, is like you have all these decisions, but until you figure out the quarterback, that to me is more likely just to bring back Jimmy and draft a guy. But the problem is you're listing all these names. A lot of these guys are going to walk. You're going to need to use some of these picks to acquire players. Like, who are going to be your corners? Like Richard Sherman, like they're just not going to pay Richard Sherman. Like they're just not going to be able to afford Juszczyk. And as you said before we jumped on, there are a lot of people running Kyle Shanahan's scheme. Well, what does that mean? A lot of people could use Juszczyk.
More people are interested in Juszczyk than when they signed him 4 years ago for $21 million.
Yeah, Kerry Hyder, that guy's made himself some money.
Kerry Hyder's got to come back, John.
I'm
not even kidding. He's got to be back.
I agree. But what do you do? I'm just arbitrarily, let's just pick a number. Let's say that fitting in your budget, you can offer him $3.5 million. Someone else, the Jaguars or the Bucks, offer him $6 million. Like, it's just, what do you do? Like, he's gone.
You go, well, we got Bosa back, we got Kinlaw, we got Armstead. We've put a lot of money into that defensive line. We got to allocate it somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to need some DBs. They're going to need some offensive linemen. The scary thing is, and you brought this guy's name up, is McGlinchey. I know he got mad that Twitter was picking on him, but Mike, and I like you as a human. Like, you're my type guy. But as a player, like I got to take the emotion out of it. You're getting worked. Like last game, the defensive line and a couple DBs shoved him around. I think McGlinchey is one of the biggest problems for this team right now because they used the 9th overall pick on him, guy. And I don't see how you pick up his 5th-year option. And the one thing you'd say about Kyle, he showed with Buckner, he can be cutthroat. I'd be a little surprised based on these clips I'm seeing and just based on the pressure is constantly coming from the left side of the line. Why? Because, I mean, the defensive side, the right side of the line for the offensive side, where McGlinchey is because they see the weak link. I don't envision the 5th-year option getting picked up. And the moment that becomes official, that officially becomes a problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they drafted him 9th overall.
Which
you drafted a guy, that's back-to-back picks, guy. They're not going to pick up their 5th-year option. Solomon Thomas, him.
Yeah, I mean, if they drafted him 11th, it'd be a little better. But at 9, you're looking at, I'm not sure exactly. I think what is it? The average
top 5
of the is it of the transition tag? Is it of a tag, or is it just of that position?
It's based on the top 5 of that position. And then 11 through 29 is like 25, top 25.
Well, then you wish you drafted him 11th.
Because we've seen a lot of these tackles, right, in the last 12 months get paid, and the numbers I keep seeing are huge. Bakhtiari, the Packers guy, $23 million a year. Tunzel was like 20. So Trent Brown, the number is going to be, if I'm just taking an educated guess here, 17 plus, right? For a guy that you don't even feel good about being your starter, you can't do that. Correct?
Correct.
You just can't. Especially because I think when they looked at Armstead, they're going to go, we're going to bring in a new defensive line coach. It'll change a little bit. And they were kind of right. The offense is like Kyle's thing, right? I mean, he's playing a part in that. It's all the offensive line. When I think Kyle Shanahan's offense, the offensive line is a huge part of what they do, right? The zone scheme, the run game. Like you need solid offensive linemen. And McGlinchey not being solid to me is a bigger question mark than all these other guys. It's inevitable, right? As your team, guys leaving free. Like Kendrick Bourne, he is a natural type guy on good teams that just gets another contract somewhere else, right? Kendrick Bourne is.
But he's a hard guy to find for yourself because you have to find him cheaper. Yeah,
like the Eagles give him a little more money because they need a wide receiver. You have to let him go. But then you realize right away, you're like, God, we kind of miss him already. Trent Taylor stinks. We don't want to put all of our pressure on our 2 wide receivers, right? You wish you could just keep them forever, like $2 million, but that's just not the way it works.
Yeah. But
you do need to hit on some more draft picks. They got to figure that out, guy.
Yeah, I think remember, and it's a different circumstance because this team really got, hurt in a way that's not normal. But for all the what happened to Sean McVay's, he went 9-7 the year after they lost the Super Bowl, right? And this year he's coming back from that year. At this point, they're 6-3. They're in good shape. Like this,
they had injuries too. Remember, Gurley was always like limping around.
That's true.
Somehow he still got like 20 touchdowns. I remember, but
I know, and paid. But you just this year because it's going to be partly, and it already started last year. It's not just about finding other players. It's now with the cap. It makes it harder with the cap going down. Because you have to evaluate your own guys. You don't even get to keep necessarily some of the guys you would normally get to keep that you like.
Well, wouldn't you say, too?
Like, under normal circumstances, you'd go, we paid Sherman $12 million this year. Great. Let's bring him back again. Right?
Would you?
I think your best corner, now, if he weren't hurt, I don't know how good he's going to be, but yeah.
He's older.
I
like,
understand,
what's the number?
but if he were healthy this year and played the way he did last year, how do you find that guy?
But this is back to what I'm saying. He'd be an unrestricted free agent.
Well,
like you would probably have a number, and some teams that are not as good pay him. I do think this is part of the deal. You got to get a little bit. They've signed some dumb contracts the last couple of years that I wonder if they would look internally like, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves with some guys. Because even Sherman, who clearly was one of the best players on the team last year, one of the best corners in the league. Once you start paying guys that are 32, 33, like Richard getting hurt this year shouldn't really be a surprise. I mean, it sucks, but it's like older guys do get injured sometimes, guy, especially a DB.
Well, there's no question. I'm just saying on a team that needs DBs, you'd probably bring your best cornerback, or you would try to bring your best cornerback.
Belichick would tell you, like, you just draft 2 of them and get them on cost-friendly contracts. You're paying all these other guys. Like, you got to – I just think you got to allocate some resources.
I'm with it, but, like, this is now you're going to be doing that coming off a year that was bad. Like, you're going to be doing that in a year where you're trying to be good again, right? You're running a couple of rookie corners. I just – it's hard. Even finding somebody else's K'Wan Williams, I don't know how you're taking somebody else's guy at this point.
I got another one for you.
It's got to be Jason Verrett's. Like, that's
they kind of got lucky when they didn't get lucky. I mean, they found him, but he had been cut by a million teams. But no one saw Mostert becoming Mostert. You know, they did just hit on a lot of like really big gems.
I do feel like running back for Kyle Shanahan, we can kind of put that in its own category. Clearly, Mostert is a head and shoulders above.
Kinda, but look at what they had to do for their running backs. Mostert saved them. They allocated all this money for McKinnon, tore his ACL twice. They paid Coleman a decent amount of change. He just gets hurt all the time. He's a good player, but they paid him.
Yeah.
Breda carried him for a little while. He was an undrafted free agent, and then Mostert was just kind of a gem. So they've shown that like they will pay running backs, and it just doesn't always work out. Like they've paid a lot of people that just didn't work out, and sometimes they've just lucked in. I hate using that word. They just find Mostert, they find Breda, they find K'Wan Williams. You know, they find these cheap assets that help them get really good because they did have some high-priced players other places. And now they're going to be kind of in a pinch because they have some good players they got to pay that they have to. Like, you got to keep Trent, and obviously Fred's going to get paid.
I'm just saying, if you told me they had 0 running backs right now, I'd go, okay,
I agree.
I'll put my worry somewhere else. But no, it's fair. They've had the longer you do this, but they've had a number of contracts and a number of picks, right? We thought for a period of time McGlinchey would be in the category of good check mark, good pick, solid pick, not all pro, but just solid. You don't have to worry about right tackle for the next 8 years. That's what we kind of thought at first, right? And that suddenly it doesn't look that way. Now you get Fred Warner later, you do Kittle later. Like they've hit on some later round picks that it's helped them. It helps them that Fred Warner was not the 9th overall pick.
Yes. And
he's making $900,000 next year.
But I mean, it helped them that Kittle was cheaper. Like
exactly.
They gotta. I think what's going to be very incumbent on them is
good word.
Warner and Kittle are probably I'm not even getting close to that ambitious, but just get a guy that can become like 3 or 4 Kendrick Bournes and K'Wan Williams in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. There are going to be a lot of pressure on their draft next year, guy, to get immediate contributions. There's going to be a lot of pressure on all these injured guys to like, can George Kittle stay healthy this year? Nick Bosa, how does he look up coming off the ACL? You know, it's just like Jimmy, how's his ankle? Like just all those are just natural questions.
Do they have to find another quarterback? It's a
problem.
It's a problem. And it's not go back to the Super Bowl. It's just go to the playoffs in a division that we got to get to.